Sometimes we sing softly restless, sometimes where evening's flowers bloom. By waters still or troubled sea, since this His hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. He is faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp my hand in thine, nor evermore more refine. Content whatever lot I see, since this my God that leadeth me. He leadeth me, He leadeth me, by His own hand He leadeth me. He is faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me. My task on earth is done, when by the grace the victory is won. In death the way I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. By His own hand He leadeth me. He is faithful follower I would be, for by His hand He leadeth me.
Shall we pray? Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee, O Lord, for this Sabbath day that You have given us. O Lord, as we now study and hear and listen to things about finances, Lord, that we will be guided accordingly from Your Bible, that we will be able to give what is for Caesar and also give what is God's, and also be able to provide for our daily needs. Thank You, Lord, for all these things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Without further ado, we'd like to give time to Brother Francisco. Thank you for coming. And this is our last presentation. I hope you enjoy the previous two Sabbaths.
Thank you, Pastor. Good afternoon, everybody. I am very grateful that you guys have stuck and are here. I'm going to take a couple minutes to share a couple testimonies about what this has done to me personally. I pray for you guys. Let me start there, okay? And I pray that if anybody is sitting here that is needing to hear this, and it really wants to turn their financials life around, that God will give you the strength to do it. Because to do it on our own, it's very hard, almost impossible. But if we pray and we have others praying for us, then God is more powerful than any evil inside, right? So that's number one. Number two, it is very rewarding when somebody approaches and says, you know what, I missed last Sabbath, but I watched the streaming program. So God is talking to you, right? So if you're interested, if you want to keep doing it, it's because the Holy Spirit is calling and it's saying, you know, it's time to get out of this debt so we can focus on other things. And then the third thing that I want to share with you is somebody asked me, do you charge for this? And I want to tell you, I don't, right? Matthew 10 says, freely receive, freely give. Okay, so this is my ministry, right? This is what God has called me to do. And I only pray that it actually helps somebody. And if it helps somebody's, I don't think that word exists, but you know what I'm saying, right? Plural, more than one. Then amen. Right? So I wanted to share those things with you. Oh, very important. Okay, this is critical. None of the 3 Sabbath, past, or the sermon, are you ready? Were AI generated. I just had to say that. Not AI generated. Okay, so let me do a little bit of housekeeping.
Don't worry, you can tell anyway.
There we go. So I mentioned on the previous 2 Sabbath that today I would bring a USB drive with all of the contents of everything that we had presented here, right? And I did. They are in this box. They're actually in different colors, so you get to choose the color you like. I brought enough, so if you're not going to use it and you want to take just 1 for family, it's fine. But if you need 2, then that's okay too. I think we have enough. There's 50 in there, so there should be plenty for everybody.
Is it okay to copy it in our computers and give that USB
To somebody else, that's no problem. There's nothing in here that is copyright or anything. Like I said, freely receive, freely give. If you find somebody that can benefit from the information that we've been sharing, by all means, please, please share it, okay? So what I wanted to show you, it's the contents of the drive, right, real quick. So the first file, or one of the files, is my notes from the first sermon. Okay, so I included that as well. So you have it, because at least in my mind, that was the foundation to everything else, right? The idea that this is not an issue about money, but rather it is part of Satan's plan to use finances as they use social media, as he uses, whatever other thing, like we were talking this morning, AI and so on and so forth, to keep us away from God, right? So that was, to me, the foundation, so I included it there. The next 3, this Finances God's Way, part 1, 2, and 3, is the 3 presentations that we have done every Sabbath, including today's. The next one, Finances God's Ways, is kind of the flyer that we had originally, so it's kind of an index, if you think about it that way. The other one is, remember I promised to include the file that had all 2,350 verses organized by topic. That is this one here, Money and Possession Scriptures. That was compiled by Crown Financial Ministries. I didn't do that. They did it, but they give it free on their website, so I include it here. And then the last one is the actual Excel spreadsheet that has everything that we looked at last week, okay, when we talking about how to get out of debt. And we're going to review real quick. We're not going to take a lot of time, but okay, any questions about the contents of the USB? Any questions about the colors of, no, I'm kidding. So moving on. Let's hide this. Okay, and now let's get started. So sometimes I get asked, why do I do this, right? Why get into financials? Why try to maintain everything? Well, right there, it's my family, right? First God, but then my family. And when I show this picture, I get asked a lot, where do your girls get their curly hair from? This has nothing to do with finances, okay? Okay, we've been together for 3 weeks now, so now you're family, so I'm gonna share with you in a little secret, family secret. So I get asked that a lot. So I decided I would show you guys, okay? My girls get their hair from okay, so the question has been answered. Okay, so now you guys know. The truth is, when you start doing this type of thing, they always tell you have to have an icebreaker, right? You know, something to get people comfortable. Well, that's mine, okay? So anyway, that was a very, very long time ago. For those Star Wars fan in a galaxy far, far away, very far. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about serious stuff. Okay, so pastor's favorite quote. I could not finish this without putting it up there. God owns everything, right? Larry Burkett from Crown Ministry says, when we acknowledge God's ownership, every spending decision, and I will go further, I will say any decision, not just spending. Okay, we're talking about finances, obviously, is every spending decision, but it is every decision becomes a spiritual decision. Okay, so everything that we do financially, we do because we are managers of God's resources. Nothing that we have is ours. Somehow, we have appropriated everything. And this is my house, and this is my car, and this is my money, especially that one, right? I worked so hard for it. No. They told you 6 days you will work. You're just obeying when you go to work. Okay? So everything belongs to God. And once we understand that, once we make that part of our lives, every spending decision becomes a spiritual decision. Okay? So, now, reviewing real quick. First week, we talked about understanding what God had given you. There's a spreadsheet in there that will help you write down everything that you currently own. God owns and has given you to administer. Then we're going to understand our debt. On that same sheet, we're going to go and write everything that we owe, because we owe that one. See, God has given us the other one, but the owing, that's on our own. That's what we're trying to get out of, right? Then we need to understand our expenses. We talked a little bit about, let's take at least a month, and everything that we spend, and there's another spreadsheet in there too, just write it down for a whole month. Everything that you spend, whether it's cash, whether it's, debit card, credit card, any payments that you do, just write it down on the day that it happened and put it under the category. Thank you. See, that was very important, okay? So you need to remember that one. So the idea is that you know for real where is your money going. Because we talked about so many places that the money goes that we don't know. Okay? Who's the evil empire? I joke about that, but the reality is that I mentioned Starbucks simply because the amount of money that we spend, that others spend on Starbucks on a daily basis. And like I mentioned before, if you have it, you have it. But there's people that don't have it and are still spending it, right? So anyway, moving on. Then we talked about establishing a budget, and there's another tab on the spreadsheet there for you to create your budget. Now, I explained on that one that I put a lot of different entries just to help you think, right? Because sometimes we don't think about including our vacation on our budget. Right? It's time to go on vacation, and we do what? We put it on the credit card, and we said, okay, we'll pay it when we come back. Today, we're going to learn the right way of doing that. Okay? But that's normally how we tend to do it. The idea is, anyway, that you include it in your budget, right? The same thing with things like uniforms or clothing or things like that we don't think about making them part of our budget, but it would be a good idea if we say, okay, you know, I'm going to put $25 or 20 or 10 every month and put it aside, right? So at the end of the year or throughout the year, I have some money to do X, Y, Z, okay? And you include it in the budget, because what happens is when you start doing that, then you realize that you're spending more than what you really are. Because those things you don't take into account. But when you plug them into the budget and you look and you say, well, if these are all my expenses, including these other things, I really don't have enough, or I'm cutting it really close. You see what I'm saying? So that's why. And we mentioned Christmas too, remember? Okay, so then we talked about saving $1,000. Why do we save $1,000? Anybody remembers? For emergencies, right? Now, this is for little emergencies. We agree? Because $1,000, you know, if something big happens, it's not going to be enough. The idea of $1,000 is just to get started in case something minor, important, minor happens, then we have a little money there. Okay, so we don't keep getting into debt. Because the problem is, if we don't have something saved, where's the money going to come from? Probably the credit cards, or a loan, or somewhere else. And we want to avoid that. Okay? Now, once we have a little bit set aside, now we're going to start paying our credit cards. And we talked about two methods. Actually, we talked about three, but two methods. Anybody remember? Number one was the snowball. Okay, on the snowball, what we do is we take the smallest one, we pay that one first. I mentioned that that one has a psychological effect because you got that one out of the way. So now you can take the minimum payment from that one, plug it into the minimum payment of the next one, and now you have more, so you pay it faster, right? So you get that one going. Once you finish that one, now you have the minimum from those two added to the next one and keep going, and it snowballs until you get rid of them, okay? So the other one was what effect? You're paying attention. I'm impressed. The avalanche. And in the avalanche, what you do is you go after the one with the highest interest. Okay? And the reason you do that is because you save more. The problem is it also has a psychological effect. And if that debt is too big, then you may get discouraged along the way. Right? Because you're not paying it. You don't see any progress. And you keep adding and adding and you don't see progress. So most people that do this recommend that you start with the snowball. Okay? You start with the smallest one, get it out of the way, take that, plug it into the next one, and keep going that way. Okay? And then you go to Taco Bell. That's right. Because we did mention that. We mentioned that you have to celebrate. Right? You have to celebrate. But don't go celebrate and spend a boatload of money that then you have to put in the credit card again. Okay, so we were kidding about, well, maybe not, but go to Taco Bell or somewhere that, Rice Masters, there you go, yeah, that's very good. Anyway, remember that the borrower is servant to the lender. Okay, very good. Okay, now we start today's. Once you have paid your credit cards, some school of thought, and I have to say this because this step is really optional. You don't have to do it, and I'll explain why here in a moment, is to save a month worth of expenses. Okay? A month worth of expenses. The idea here is $1,000, it's for minor emergencies. But if you get an emergency that is a little bigger, you want to make sure that you have a little more. Because emergencies is really what is going to take you out of your route. Okay? Well, also temptation and, you know, a sale on technology or sale on purses and shoes or something. That also can deviate you from your route. But assuming that that is not getting to you than emergencies will. So we want to make sure we save some money. Now, this is optional, we said, but it provides you with some extra cushion. It gives you a little bit of comfort, knowing that you have a little more saved. Come on in, welcome. Hey, Faith. Hi. Now, it is also a way to avoid using credit cards again, right? So if you have saved a little more, a month worth, now, if something happens, you don't have to go back to a credit card, which is really what we're trying to avoid, okay? Why do I go to the credit cards and not so much to loans or other things? Because of the interest rate. Do you remember what we mentioned was the interest rate for credit cards? Okay, 16 to 26, anywhere in that range, okay? Anywhere in that range. Now imagine 25% interest. That's a quarter of what you owe that they're charging you every year, divided by 12. And then that is compounded, meaning that whatever interest they charge you this month, they're gonna take it and they're gonna charge you interest on top of that interest next month. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And if you keep paying only your minimum payment, you're just never gonna get out of it. Okay, have you have a credit card, hopefully nobody here, that you've had for the last 10 years and you just cannot get it paid? This is why. Because the interest keeps getting on top of each other and keeps getting compounded. Anyway, so why is this optional? Because if when you finish paying your credit cards, you're so thrilled and so excited and you just want to keep going and you just want to finish all your debt, then you move on to the next one. And now you're going to pay all your debt except for your house, because the house is going to take a little longer, okay? And we don't want to, again, we don't want to discourage you. We want to encourage you to be able to finish this. Now, what are we talking about here? See, that's why I stay here, because it works better from this side. Okay, so we want to continue the snowball with things like, and she's here too. So it attracts. Anyway, you want to continue the snowball, but now with any loans, car payments, if you have house equity loans, we want to get those in there. So anything that is not the mortgage on the house, okay, anything that is not the mortgage on the house, we want to get rid of. And last week, Uncle Jimmy and I were talking a little bit about refinancing to get lower interest, okay? That used to be a good idea a couple years ago. Now, that all the interest for mortgages are going up, so that's not going to help much unless your interest is super high. Anyway, so we want to continue the snowball because at this point, by God's grace, we have finished the payment of all of our credit cards. That money that we were paying on a monthly basis, we have it available to us, right? So we take that and we put it towards the loans. That, again, the smaller one, right? Now instead of paying $100, you could potentially be paying $300, $400, $500. So you're going to finish it a lot faster. You get rid of that one, then of the other one, until all the remaining debt is completely gone. Okay? Same concept. Start with a smaller and move on. Okay. Let me go back here for a minute. Any question about that? We start with the credit cards because the interest normally is higher. Get rid of that. Save a little more if you want, unless you feel that you're on a roll. If you do, then you go on to your other loans. Get rid of those. Okay? Questions up to that point? Yes. Okay? Here. So everybody can. Oh. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Question number one.
Question number one. Do you recommend use cash or debit card instead of credit card? I know there are some rewards or there's also some privilege to use a credit card. And second question, do you recommend also getting money from your equity to pay off of your credit cards?
Okay. Two good questions. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with the second one because it's easier. Okay? No. No. Let's not continue to get into debt to get out of other debt, because most times, and I'm not going to say, I don't know each individual case, right? But normally that's what gets you into trouble in the first place. So let's just hit the credit cards with everything we can, but not by getting into more debt, right? So that's the easier one to answer. The other one, the answer to that is yes. If you can use cash and a debit card and not touch your credit cards, that would be the preferable method. The only time, and I think I mentioned this before, the only time that I have seen that a credit card is not, I'm sorry, that a debit card can get you into a little bit of trouble is if somebody grabs a hold of your number and it uses it somewhere, and then you set a claim. It takes a little bit of time for the bank to put that money in there, and if you're trying to get out of the hole, that can get you into trouble, okay? On the flip side of that, if you still have the credit card and you keep using them, then unless you have the discipline to pay it off at the end of the month, then you may continue to get, you know, just it's a vicious circle. Okay, so the farthest away you can be from credit cards, the better. So to answer your first question, yes, I do recommend use cash, use your debit card, you know, and then take care of that number so nobody gets it. And now, on that point, I will say this. What we used to do at some point in our lives was have two accounts. We had two accounts, okay? We had one account with a smaller amount, and we had a debit card on that one. So if somebody grabbed a hold of that number, then the amount of money that they had available was a lot less, right? So I would have in that account only the balance that I need to use with my debit card, right? And then my main account will have, you know, that's the one that would get the direct deposits from work and so on and so forth. And then once a month, I would transfer money to this other one and use that debit card against that one. That makes it a little safer, okay? Because it's less money that they can take from you. Okay. Any other question about that? Yes, Louis.
My question is there a debit card that could give you points for, let's say, you want it for airplane points, frequent flyer things?
Not that I'm aware of, okay? If there is, I'm not aware of. So, and let me share something with you real quick. The reason, I'll go there in a minute. The reason that the credit cards give you all these perks is because they're charging the vendors a percentage for you to use a debit card. Have you noticed that lately? Because the law changed. In the past, the law said that the vendor could not pass those charges on to you. That law changed. And now, if you go to certain places, I go to Honda now to change my oil, and when I go to Honda to change my oil, they said, if you paid with a credit card, we're going to charge you a 3% more. Actually, I went to the donut shop in King the other day. They said it differently. It was really cute. They said, if you're paying cash, we'll give you a discount. Same thing. If you pay with a credit card, we're going to charge you a 3% more. No, actually 4%, right? Anyway, 4%. They charge you more if you pay with a credit card. So now that that law changed, some vendors, especially the smaller ones, well, Honda's not that small, but anyway, they're passing that on to you because that's what the credit cards are using to give you all those perks. Okay? So you get all excited. Yes, I get miles, I get, you know, rewards, I get this, I get that. Yeah, because they're charging. But eventually, the more, oh, this week, AT&T. AT&T sent me an email. If you don't change from credit card to debit card, we're going to take the discount that we give you of $10 for whatever, and now it's going to be $5 per line. Okay, so I got 5 lines, so it's $25 a month. So basically, that is the same 3 or 4% that they would use for the interest on the credit card. So vendors are getting smart, and they're saying, we need to recoup the money that the credit cards are taking from us. And guess who's going to pay for that? So all those perks that you're getting, trust me when I tell you, eventually you're going to start paying for them. Okay? So just for you to think about. Yes, Uncle Jimmy.
This is the second question of our sister that regarding to get an cash or equity line of home equity line of credit. Yeah, this is scenario is in our family. When we went to the Philippines, we weren't able to come home the next month. It extended to 2 months. So our credit card was something wrong. So from 12% to 26%, that's what you said, okay? So when we arrived, that's the punishment that we received. So our banker called me that the home equity line of credit interest is very low, 3.5 is what I mentioned last time. And then I grabbed that opportunity. We took equity loan. I pay all the credit cards, the big interest like that. So I save lots of money. But my loan in the home equity loan, it was lower because the interest rate was already 3.5 from 7.5. So was it advisable? It's a good decision that what I did?
Yep, and every situation is different. So what? Oh, so every situation is different, right? Every situation is different. The encouragement here is to pay all of your credit cards as soon as you can and use as much as you have to get it. When you get into more debt, even if you're saving in the process, right? Even if you're saving in the process, the issue is that the cards are still there unless you cancel them, right? Unless you get your line of credit, you pay them all off and you cancel them where you can't use them anymore, then that's a different story. But if you have them, you still have the possibility to now have the line of credit and then go use the credit cards. But every family is different.
Yeah, I did not cancel it, but I cut it.
Okay.
I cannot use it. That's what I did.
So in your case, that may have worked, right? In your case, that may have worked. But as a general rule, the idea is not to get into debt to pay debt. You see what I'm saying? Okay, it's just let's get rid of the debt that we have and not get into that again. Okay, preferably if you can cut all the credit cards, even better. Okay, moving on. So once all your debt is paid, except the house, right? Now you are almost debt free. Believe me when I tell you, there is a relief that you feel when you get to this point that is hard to explain. When you know that you don't have to pay a single penny to anybody except for your house on a monthly basis, it's a special kind of feeling, okay? It's like you've been liberated from something. And I won't say the words, but go back to the sermon on the first week that we start talking, and you'll know what I'm talking about, okay? So now, the next important thing here is for us to have a cushion for bigger emergencies, okay? And what I'm talking about bigger emergencies is, imagine for a minute, and I hope this never happens to anybody. Hope and pray that this never happens to anybody. But imagine for a moment that you get sick and you cannot work for a few months. And some of us, we may have long-term disability, right, as part of our benefits packages at work, but some may not. And all of a sudden, you spend a few months out of work, right? And if you get paid for the work that you do, now what happens? So there's no income. So there's a possibility of doing what? Going back into debt. So before that happens, what we want to do is we want to have a cushion. Okay? And we want to save because now we have no debt, right? Except the house. We've paid all that stuff. So whatever amount of money we were using to pay all that, now we can use to save. And you guys say, why don't I invest it? We'll get to that in a minute. Okay? But we're not to that point yet. Because when you invest, it takes a little bit of time to take it out. Right? So you want to have something that is liquid, that's how they call it, so that is readily available. Okay? I just found yesterday a bank that is giving on their savings account a 4.6%. Okay? Guess what I did? I opened an account and I moved as much as I could into it. Okay? This is, the other one was giving me 4.15. This one is giving me 4.6. For however long it lasts, I'm getting 0.5% more than what I was getting before. You see what I'm saying? Okay? So the idea is you have a cushion that is available to you so you can, in the case of an emergency, react. Plus, having, and notice, this is not how much you make. This is expenses. So when you look at the spreadsheet that I sent you, there is a section that is called living expenses. This does not include taxes. This does not include tithe, right? Because you pay tithe on what you make, right? And if you're not making anything, then you're not paying tithe, right? Do we understand each other? So living expenses are the things that you have to pay regardless. So you have to pay your mortgage, right? You have to pay for food, okay? Tell one of the people living in my house that they're not going to have any food, and you will see what's going to happen in a heartbeat, right? So the guys that we were talking about, the black eyes before, okay, just picture that, okay? Anyway, just joking. Moving on. Once we get to this point, now we're ready to focus on paying our house. Oh, the whys. Hold on. Well, I think I told you already. Now that that's paid off, you should have some extra money. Use it to save for a large emergency. In case you get laid off. Yep, we talked about all that. Okay? So, sorry. Before getting to the house. At this point is when we start saving and putting money for retirement. Okay? Especially if you, let me go back. Okay. Start saving before buying. Let me say that again. Start saving before buying. Now I can go here. What does that mean? If you want new furniture, don't go to Rooms to Go and put on a credit card and you're going to pay it in the next 5 years. No. You save first, right? Because now you can. Because all that money that you were paying on credit cards and loans, you don't have to pay them anymore. So now you can put money aside for the furniture that you want and get there fairly quickly because you have the money, right? If you want new appliances, you know what? My refrigerator doesn't look cool anymore. You know, still white. I want it now stainless steel or black or whatever. You know, you want new appliances. Save for them first. Another example, you want to buy a new car. save for it first. You can. And let me make a parenthesis here. I was reading, and I actually have it on my iPad, I was reading about what a gentleman that was writing an article, and he calls himself a frugal millionaire. Okay? So anybody knows a different word for frugal? Stingy, there you go. Okay? And one of the things he says, one of the first things he says, he recommends is don't buy a new car. Just don't. Your car loses like 20% once you drive it out of the lot. Okay? In other words, if you try to sell it back, you already lost 20% of the value of the car. There are exceptions to that rule, but for the, for the majority of that. And you're going to tell me, but the interest is higher. Yeah, but you lost 20%. You see what I'm saying? Okay? So he said, buy good used cars, okay? Cost you less than 100,000 miles, okay? And then continue. At home, we do it a little different. We buy new cars, but we keep them for 10 years, okay? We don't get a new car until 10 years after. So if we get a new car, we know we're going to keep it, for 10 years, no leases, none of that. And then after 10 years, you pay them 5, the other 5 you're saving for when the next one comes, okay? So that you can actually save and buy it in cash. Normally, when you have cash, you can make better deals also at the auto place, okay? And then if you want to go on vacation, this is one of my favorites, okay? Because this is one of the places where we most go first, put it all in the credit card, and then spend the next 10 years, I'm exaggerating for effect, trying to pay for what we spent on that vacation. Unless it was to San Antonio, then it would be just the next 2 years. Okay? Now, it's important to save for retirement. We're going to see a little bit of that in a moment. But if your company offers a match on retirement, okay? If a company offers a match for retirement, do your best to use it. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? In your 401k, there are companies that if you put $1, they give you 50 cents, or they give you another dollar, or they give you 70, whatever. They match what you put into your 401k. If you don't put that money in your 401k, you're leaving money on the table. Because the company's giving it to you and you're saying, no, I don't want it. You see what I'm saying? Okay? And let me tell you a secret. Especially for those of you that are, let me say, 45 and below. Okay? You see retirement like, oh my goodness, it is so far away. This will never happen. Yeah, that was me. And it seemed like 2 years ago. Okay? Before you know it, you're here and you're that guy needing the 401k. I used to work for a benefits consulting company. And I worked with the data, and I saw people that were retired, so asked to retire, at 55. They had not saved a penny, and they still needed 7 years to start collecting on Social Security. And at 55, it's not necessarily that easy to get another job that pays you what you were. It's not hard to get a job, but to get a job that pays you what you were making before. You see what I'm saying? Because normally you have to start from the bottom up again. Sometimes not, okay? But sometimes you do. So the idea is the sooner you can start saving, the better. And if there is a match, take it. Okay? Take it. Exactly. Exactly. Don't leave money on the table. And now you go and you pay your house early. So instead of paying $1,000 every month, you pay 15. I'm just throwing numbers, right? I'm not saying you have to do 15. I'm just saying just do a little more, okay? Or as much more as you can. And now you have a 30-year mortgage that you can probably pay in 15. Or you have a 20-year mortgage that you can pay in 10. Or so on and so forth. You see what I'm saying? And all of a sudden, you don't owe your house to the bank anymore. I wanted to say it's your house, but don't pay the property taxes and you'll see who belongs to. But anyway, property taxes is a lot less than what you need to pay to the bank on a yearly basis. Okay? Now, I want to share something with you. A few weeks back, I was studying this passage, and I felt impressed to make sure that before this was over, I shared this with you, and I want to. So here goes. It is found in 1 Chronicles chapter 21. Okay? 1 Chronicles chapter 21. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to paraphrase most of it, and then I'll read the specific verse that I want us to look at. David, as a king, he does a census. Okay? Well, guess what? God did not want him to do that census. He didn't. So, verse 7 says, and God was displeased with this thing, therefore he struck Israel. And David and God had such a great relationship. So David said to God, I have sinned greatly. Verse 8. Because I have done this thing, but now I pray, take away the iniquity of your servant, for I have done very foolishly. We all make mistakes, right? We may have gone and spent a boatload of money on something that we really didn't have to, or didn't need to. Remember, difference between needs and wants, okay? But notice this. Then the Lord spoke to Gad, David's seer, saying, go and tell David, saying, thus say the Lord, I offer you 3 things. God is giving David choices. Choose one of them for yourself, that I may do it to you. So God came and says, choose, here they are. First one, 3 years of famine, no food. Second, 3 months to be defeated by your foes with the sword of your enemies overtaking you. And third, 3 days the sword of the Lord, the plague in the land, with the angel of the Lord destroying throughout all territory of Israel. And I was sharing this with my wife, and she had such a beautiful perspective on this. And David said to God, verse 13, I am in great distress. Please let me fall into the hand of the Lord, for his mercies are very great. But do not let me fall into the hand of man. Even when there was a punishment, David chose to be God's punishment. Whatever is going to happen to me is going to happen with God. It's not going to happen with man. Now, it continues. Then, and God sent the angel to Jerusalem to destroy everything, and relented of, but the Lord looked, check this out, and relented of the disaster and said to the angel who was destroying, it's enough. David knew this. You understand what I'm saying? Even when God is offering punishment, God is looking and saying, I can't do it. These are my people. Stop. They deserve the punishment, but stop. It's okay. So then David lifted his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord standing between earth and heaven, having in his hand the sword, and so on and so forth, okay? And David said to God, was it not I who commanded the people to be numbered? So, verse 19. So David went up to the word of God, which he had spoken in the name of the Lord. Now, Ornan, and this is really the part that I just want to give you context, turned and saw the angel and his 4 sons who were with him and hid themselves. But Ornan continued threshing the wheat. So this is somebody that is in the fields, okay, within heat, Ornan. So David came to Ornan, and Ornan looked and saw David, and he went out from where he was doing and bowed before David with his face to the ground. Then David said, hey, grant me the place of this threshing floor that I may build an altar on it to the Lord. You should grant it to me at full price, that the plague may be withdrawn from the people. Following this, so Ornan owns the place. David comes and says, hey, sell it to me full price, okay? No discounts because I'm the king or anything. Sell it to me full price so I can build an altar. Look what Ornan says. But Ornan said to David, take it to yourself, and let my lord the king do what is good in his eyes. Look, I also give you the oxen for the burnt offering, the threshing implements for the wood, and the wheat for the grain offering. I give it all. So Ornan now happily says, you know what? I'm not going to sell this to you. You're the king. Take it all. I'll give you more. And here is the lesson for us today, dear church. Then verse 24. Then King David said to Ornan, no, but I will surely buy it for the full price, for I will not take what is yours for the Lord, not offer burnt offering with that which cost me nothing. Do we understand what is happening here? David is not going to give anything to God that it cost him nothing. How many times do we find ourselves trying to give God something that has cost us nothing? And I shared with you an example, which hurts me badly, but I have no saying in it. Adventist giving. It allows us to use our credit cards to return our tithe. But what is a credit card but a loan? And who does the money belong to? Not to me, certainly. The money belongs to the bank because I owe it. So now I am borrowing money, something that you can say, yeah, it's going to cost you because it's going to cost you the interest. But the point is, at the time that you are returning your tithe, that money is costing you nothing. Because that's not even your money. There's something for you to think about. That's just an example. But so many times we want to give God something that costs us nothing. I don't want to give offering. I'm just going to give the tithe. Because offering is going to cost me something. And I am not here to ask you to give more to the church. That's between you and God. You don't want to give anything, that's between you and God. I have no saying in that. But I am here to tell you that God has never let us down. Ever. And I had a conversation this week with a member of the church, and one of the things that I shared is, when it comes to God, I do not penny pinch. We start going like, well, you know, let me see here. If I give $10 offerings, then I'm only going to have 5 left, and I need, and we start rationalizing how we need all this money, right? And I'll be blunt, the church does not need your money. This is God's church. If God wants to bring somebody to that door tomorrow that says, hey, what do you need to buy this new church? 2 million, here it is. If he wants to do it, he will do it. He does not need any of us for this. And sometimes we say, well, the church asks for so much. Church is not asking you for anything. The church is just telling you what the plans are. And now it's up to you to decide how are you going to respond. And now I'm getting preachy, so I'm going to stop. Because this is not meant to be a sermon, it's just meant to be a seminar. But to me, it's important that we all understand that when we negotiate with God, and yes, I did say negotiate, we never lose. We just don't. Don't believe me. Don't trust me for anything. Just go try it yourselves. Okay? Don't trust me. I can tell you my story all day long. But my story is not yours. You need to go and try it on your own and test it on your own. And see what God is going to do for you. And I assure you, you will be the ones here teaching the seminars because of what God has done for you. Remember when we talked about the demon-possessed man on the sermon? What happened after he was cured? What Jesus told him? He wanted to go with Jesus. Jesus said, no, go talk to people. He became a witness. That's what I pray that is going to happen here. That you guys are going to get out of debt, and then you're going to go talk to others and say, hey, look what God has done for me. Okay? I still got preaching. So now, by the grace of God, you are debt-free. And let me share something. Last step is give and invest. Sometimes we don't understand what investment means. But when you give, you are investing on your own spiritual life. You're putting your treasures in heaven. And I'm not just talking about giving money, right? You learn something here. Go share that. Give it to others. Let others know you don't have to live your life just choking every day, living paycheck to paycheck. You don't have to. There are ways to get out of it. There are others in need. Go help them. Okay? Sometimes we think that giving is just about money. It's not. Giving is an attitude. You learn to give of yourself. We're selfish by nature. This is what reverses that. If you remember what we read from Ellen G. White, that says that the more you continue being selfish, or when that is active, the more you do it, and then we use benevolence to contrarrest that. I'm paraphrasing big time, but okay? The more we help, the better off we are. And now, let's talk about investment for a second. You see that graph there? If you start in your 20s and you put $1,000 a year, $1,000 a year for 40 years until you're in your 60s. Let's say you get 10%. It's a little hard to get right now, but at the time this was done, that was not unheard of. You would have close to $500,000 with $1,000 every year. A year. That's about $83 a month, no more. $500,000 by the time you're 60, by the time of retirement. That is compounded yearly. If you find a place that they compounded monthly, this will be over $500,000. But any youngsters in here today? Yep, we have a few. This is my favorite of them all. Okay? I tell you a story. And with this story, I'm going to wrap up and finish, okay? Investment. Two brothers. One started saving $2,000 a year at age 19. And at age 26, stopped. So 8 years. Put $2,000, started at age 19, and then stopped completely. Just left the money there. Didn't touch it. Okay, again, this is assuming 10%. His brother said, no, I'm going to use my money when I'm young. This saving stuff, I'm going to do it when I'm old. So he waited until he was 27, 8 years later, and started doing the same 2,000 until he was 65. Every year until he was 65. Okay? This brother invested about 16,000, right? 8 years at 2,000, 16,000. This one, 2,000 until age 65, invested about 78,000. At 65, both of them, look at which one had more. The one that invested 16,000 but started earlier actually had over $1 million at age 65. Whereas the one that started at 27 and kept going until 65 only had 800,000. Can anybody tell me why? It's called compound interest. Remember what I told you about the credit cards? That the interest that they charge you this month, they will charge you interest on that interest the next one? Well, guess what? That applies for savings too. The interest that you get this month, they will get interest the next, and the next, and the next. And even if you stop at some point and you leave it there, it continues to accumulate interest over interest. And at 65, age of retirement, we're close, okay? With an investment of 16,000, because he started early, he had over $1 million in the bank. Ladies, listen. Okay? What is the message here? The earlier you start, the better. Okay? The earlier you start, the better. Now, does that mean that if I didn't start at 19, I should not do it? No, that's not what it meant, because this other brother, even though he invested 78, he still had 800,000 out of 78. That's not shabby. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying don't invest unless you start early. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the earlier you start, the better off you could be. And I say could because, you know, depends on a lot. Where? Okay, so you remember the first time I was here, I said, I'm not a financial analyst, I'm a financial coach. Financial analysts normally tell you that. But depending on the amount of money, if you want it liquid, right, so money that you can get quickly, you put it in what they call a high yield savings account, like the one I was mentioning, 4.6% is savings, you can get it. Other people, they do mutual funds, okay? So they don't have to understand all of the investment logic behind everything. But most people, what they would do is find themselves a financial analyst that they will help them and, you know, tell them, depending on how much you have, depending on how old you are, depending on how much risk you want to take, all this thing. There's a lot of questions that, not a lot, but there's questions that you need to answer before they tell you, and there are different funds, and anyway. So, but yeah, just talk to somebody that knows a lot more than I do about that, and they will guide you through it. Normally when you go, for instance, the conference has, it's not Millennium, is well, Trust is a little different. I'm talking about the 401k, the company that manages the 401k for the conference. I can't remember right now, but they have it. So if you go to them, They actually have advisors, financial advisors, that they will answer that question, like I said, so much better than I can. Yeah. No. But anyway, it's whatever that company is, which I can't remember right now. I'll text it to you. I'll go check it, text it to you. They can help you with that. Okay. Any other question? Yes.
I learned from you. I have some lesson here. It says here, senior citizens discount must be 80 years old, must bring parents as a proof.
This could not have finished in a better way.
And anyway, for your information, I'm already retarded for several years. So my income is in the bank, but I term it moonlighting. This week, I earned $100. That's good for grocery. I'm talking about moonlighting is sideline only, even though I'm retarded already.
Thank you. Any other questions? By the way, what you think about the questions, here are the Promise USBs. They're all the same. Well, the contents are all the same. They're different colors, so choose the one you like best. Yes. So, yes, go ahead.
Is this Marcus by Goldman Sachs online saving, and they have this also high yielding, is safe?
Goldman Sachs, see. Sir, I'm sorry. Yes, certainly. Most certainly.
By the way, we haven't invested our church money yet because we still need the bank names. Okay.
Is that a sign of things to come?
Return this. We will return this to you.
No. No, that's yours. Yeah, sure. Okay. So, I think, yes, question. The 4.6, PNC. They've been around for a while. Okay. So, oh, question, yes.
What do you say about consolidation? We've been receiving like offers from the bank of consolidating all our credit cards. If you have 5, 6, 7 credit cards, consolidate it into one. What do you think about that?
So that falls with what I mentioned before. Getting into debt to pay other debt is not a good idea, right? So that's how the banks make a lot of their money, because, understand, but the key to this is you still have the other 7 credit cards, right? And as long as you have the other 7 credit cards, let me just call it the temptation to use them after you pay them tends to be very high. Again, I don't know your household, I don't know your situation, but for most people, and I told you about my friend, that he started with that same thing. When I talked to him, he had 26 credit cards. 26. I had never heard anybody with that many. Okay? I knew people that had quite a bit of credit cards, but 26, that was a lot. And that's what happened. He gets one that says, hey, 0% interest, consolidate everything. So he does, right? Consolidates the first 3, pays them all, but then starts using those again, right? And now he has all this debt plus the one he's getting again. So he told me that what he had done was he had taken money from his retirement to pay all 26 credit cards, but they were all still there. And now he's telling me, I'm only using 2. And I asked him point blank, I said, how long until you're using 10? And now you don't have the money for your retirement, right? Which he's close to. So my opinion is don't get into debt to get out of debt, because you run the risk of going back to those cards and use them again. The idea is go ahead on into the cards that you have, pay them off, cut them off, right? Like Uncle Jimmy did. Just cut them all off and don't look back. Don't look back. Okay? Go ahead.
Just regarding the mortgage of the house, it's good that you mentioned that you need to pay more for the monthly mortgage to be paid. But there's a technique there, because I was a victim of this one of ignorance. I paid $100 every month more, but I did not specify towards the principal. And then 4 months after, I said, why? I know about math, so I called the bank. I said, why? Do you pay this one? We receive it. But you did not specify where the additional payment will go to.
That is a very good point. So what Uncle Jimmy is talking about is, remember that we said you're going to pay more towards your loans, and then when you're going to pay your mortgage, you're going to pay more towards the mortgage. Make sure, and if you're doing it online, most services will ask you, is this another monthly payment, or do you want this to be towards the principal? Make sure you tell them it's towards the principal, okay? Because if not, all you're doing is you're making more monthly payments. So you're paying the whole interest, and that's what you don't want to do. You want to lower the principal so the interest lowers as well. And thank you for reminding me on that same note. When you start a mortgage, that is when the interest is the highest. Okay? If you have ever seen a graph of the whole history of your, not history, but what is that? There's a name for that, and now I can't remember. But where it shows you, this how much you're paying to principal, this how much you're paying to interest, it looks like this. This is the interest, this is the principal, and then this one starts going down when this one starts going up. Basically, it is halfway through your mortgage, give or take, that you start paying more on principal than on interest. What does that mean? That if when you start paying more to your principal, right, then you cut from the end and your principal is less, because then that graph, right, also has less interest because there is less principal. So the less principal, the less interest, right? So the more you pay towards your principal, especially at the beginning, okay, you save a lot of money on interest. Okay, just something to think about it. If you're about to finish if you're about to finish paying it, well, that probably doesn't apply. But if you're starting, keep that in mind.
I have 2 scenarios. I paid $50 a month towards the principal for one house before, and then the second one, after we sold it, I paid additional $100 a month more to the principal. At the time it was 8%. Instead of paying 30 years mortgage, you can pay it in 19.5 years.
Oh, well, that is very good. So did you get that? A 30-year mortgage in roughly 20 years. So shave 10 years off, a little more than 10 years of the mortgage. Okay, that's really good. Okay, just by paying $100 more every month. Okay, so something to think about. And most banks now, because now everything is online, right? You can go to online and they have what is called the what if. They may be called something else, right? But most says what if. So you can go in there and you can plug in and say, well, if I paid another $100 a month or 200 or 50, and it tells you how much it shaves in years and in interest. So you can do it. You can actually see it before you start sending the money. Okay, so something to think about. Okay, any other question? If not, we're wrapping up.
Is it better to put, let's say for example, you're buying a 50,000 car. Is it better to put extra money on the down payment than just paying off afterwards extra?
I'm gonna plead the fifth on that one and say that depends on your situation. Okay, that depends on your situation. As a general rule, okay, the ideal is not to buy the $50,000 car, go with something cheaper and, no, I'm just, I know. So, no, the point is, so on cars, right, the advice is try to buy them used, right, because they're cheaper. Try to use them a little longer, okay? So you can save on your payment. And if you can pay extra from the get-go, then that's better because you finish your loan faster. Okay, anything else? Yes.
Additional point, 100,000 mortgage for the house at 8% payable in 30 years. If you will follow it, the monthly premium, monthly PITI payment, it will cost you almost 500,000.
Okay.
Okay, but if you will pay more, you will save. No, I mean the number of years you will save about 10 years, is what you said. But you save more because the payment of the mortgage plus the additional payment, it will decrease, and then you pay it less interest. So you think this, that 100,000 cost of house before 8%, it will cost you about 500,000 when you pay up 30 years.
Thank you. I see you get excited about this too. Okay, anybody else? Going once? Questions? Going twice? Very good. So thank you everybody for being here. I really appreciate you guys putting up with me talking about numbers. And anyway, so if you have, I told you this before, I was tempted to put my number on one of the slides, my phone number, and then I remember, wait a minute, they're streaming this. That means that my personal phone number is going to be all over the internet, so I decided not to. So you can ask the pastor.
We can ask him about financial problem.
You can ask the pastor, you can, you know. And let me say this, and this I say from the bottom of my heart. I told you this is my ministry, right? If you need somebody to talk to, it doesn't have to be about your financial situation. Okay? If you need somebody to talk to, please call. And most importantly, if you need somebody to pray with, I don't need to know your financial situation. I'm not here, I'm not nosy, okay? I'm not gossipy. I'm not interested in your financial situation unless you want me to help you with what we have talked about, because that's what I do, right? But if you want somebody to pray with, if you're having a hard time with this, because I know it's hard, I've been there, okay? Sometimes I still am. So, you know how tempting it is when you actually have the money in the bank to go say, you know what, I need this, I need this, I need this, and then you realize, I don't need any of that, I want all of that. And then you go back to needs and wants, right? But anyway, the point is, you want somebody to pray with, just give me a call. You don't have to tell me anything, okay? Just Francisco, Paco, whatever, I need somebody to pray with. I will pray with you, okay?
Which is better, a bank or a piggy bank? Because my granddaughter said, smart people usually has a piggy bank because they have lots of common sense. 50 cents.
I say you start with a piggy bank and then move on to a bank.
There is a question also, which one are preferable for husband and wife to have in one account on the share, or they just separate?
I was so hoping that question would not come up. On the first day, somebody asked me that same question. I said, I am not going there. I'm not. But I have thought about it since, and I will answer.
Biblically, or long experience, what's the idea of husband and wife?
So biblically, I have not found anything that is specific on that route. But I will share this with you. There is more than one way to manage finances at home, okay? The ideal, and I say the ideal, would be to have one single joint account with a good budget and allowances for him and for her. So the money that comes in there is used for whatever's on the budget. Each one gets an allowance monthly, and then that money is for them to spend. They don't have to, tell anybody about what they used it for, right? I don't mean it that way. What I mean is it's not money that is just in a budget, you're gonna get this much and that's for you, and Now, some families, that does not work. You have a joint account, they both can sign. Once one of them goes through their allowance, they keep going through the other one's allowance, they keep going through the budget, they keep going through everything. Normally, there is somebody in the family that likes to spend money and one that wants to save. So opposites attract, also working here, okay? So there are other ways of managing this, okay? Sometimes, because of that, you need to have separate accounts, okay? Sometimes you even need to have 3 accounts, and let me qualify that. You have the main one where the money comes in, right? The direct deposits come in. From there, then you do the allowances to the other 2, and the one that spends the most only has access to that one. I'm kidding. I'm kidding about that. Or no access. So it is important that both have, I call it an allowance, but you need to have something that you can call your own, right? If I want to buy a gift for my wife, I don't want to have to go and tell her, right, that I'm going to use that money to buy you a gift, right? You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going? So you need to have something that you call your own, each one, right? But to accomplish that depends on every household, okay? Like I said, it depends who likes to spend the most. Sometimes I found families that they're both frugal. And then nobody wants to spend on anything. That could also be interesting. I'm not going to say it's a problem, but it could be interesting, okay? You have some others that they both like to spend just in different things. I gave the example, one technology, the other one shoes and purses, right? Anyway, the point is every family is different, okay? Sometimes you need a counselor, okay? Call it a financial therapist, okay? Simply because to get to this point where you are debt-free and you are actually comfortable, both of you have to work on this together. Actually, not both, the whole family. Because if you accustom your kids to every time they said, hey, I want the latest shoes, $500 tennis shoes, and yes, they exist, okay? And yes, there are parents that will buy their kids $500 tennis shoes because if not, they're gonna get bullied at school. Well, I'd rather teach them how to be strong and stand up to a bully than buy them $500 tennis shoes, but that's me, right? So different families manage things different. And this is something that if you want to get out of it, the whole family has to do a little sacrifice, right? We have to give of what God has given us, and we have to manage it with His direction and His advice. Sometimes we need others' help, okay? When that happens, then we are here, right? And we can, at the very least, pray for you. But there are different ways. There are different ways. And that's a whole another afternoon that we're not going to have, right? But if you have questions about your specific situation, feel free to ask me. I will tell you what I think, okay? And like I said, every situation is different. And now I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to stop.
In the Philippines, when we do a stewardship seminar, we include husband and wife during the seminar, especially on the finances. And our manual and also our, from the GC, for family life, it's really on the ideal side, on the ideal. Family life seminar is always banking on, ideally, husband and wife, the trust is there, 100%. So we have to agree together, we live together in God's grace and mercy. Let's be transparent in our finances, and let's not hide. It's your account, this is my account, it's something like that. So the family is always like, there's a family council meeting, openness there, how many, so it's just a way of living life, transparency, living with no hidden agenda, right? Just the way we do the seminars for family life, especially for marital counseling, premarital counseling, we do that really. Be transparent with your finances because this will break your marriage. If you are something, you are not transparent, you are hiding something, agenda, it will break your marriage right away. No. Right, honesty is the best policy for married couple. Be honest, let's be transparent. You have issue this one, let's be transparent because it builds up support as well. Okay, but I like also the idea. There's a main, there's a your allowance, so you cannot cross this one. There's restricted area, but there's a main area. So it depends because in the U.S. because of the divorce issue, right, or some issues, they separate their finances, something, because if something, this is registered to my name. In my house here, this is registered, and this one is registered to her, and this card is to me, and in case something will happen, they just, okay, bye, this is mine, this is yours, no more conjugal property to be divided because we already separated when we start our marriage. So something is, in the US it's different, but in America, no, in the Philippines, we don't have divorce. So we try to force more on. Be transparent, be open. Let's put everything in the table because we don't have, back in our mind, we don't have divorce vocabulary at the back of our mind. We just put it on the table, everything. But in the U.S., because there's a divorce vocabulary, there is always, what if something will happen in our marriage? So we have to be cautious. You know what? So it's different. But there is an ideal. That's what you said, ideal.
And just to share with you real quick some of the situations that I've heard. Credit cards come in, offers for credit cards coming into the house. Husband signs for them, gets a credit card. Wife knows nothing about this. The credit card is on the wife's name. He signs for the credit card, imitating or forging her signature, maxes the credit cards that are on her name. Eventually, either she finds out or they get divorced. Guess who's stuck with the bill? Okay? And vice versa. Wife does the same thing. Sometimes it's not that bad. Sometimes it's just whatever credit card comes to the house, they just sign it and get it. My friend, 26 of them. Okay? And they keep maxing out every single credit card and gets to a point that they just cannot live because there is not enough money to pay for the interest, let alone for the total balance of the credit cards. So that's what I was saying, depending on how you are, and I hope that is not the case of any family here, right? I pray and hope that that's not the situation here, but understand that there are situations out there where things get very complicated very fast. And to get to a point where they can breathe again, it's very challenging. We have one advantage. Number one, God. Okay? We have prayer. We have a relationship with God that others don't have, right? So let's take advantage of that. And we have a very tight community. We support each other. That's one of the things I love about this church.
Thank you. Let's give hands to Paco. It's really, are you blessed, fellow church member? Yes. So this is a moving, dynamic seminar because we are still, on the process of digesting and applying and put it into practice. So we are really glad, Brother Francisco, God sent you here to give us church, ministry, and all the knowledge, information, and biblical principle, very deep, theologically, biblically, everything is solid, based on the Bible. So we are so blessed because, imagine like this topic, it's really, it go to the core of our heart that this is what I really need. This is very spiritual. So you imagine this topic like this time, everybody is sleeping, but we are not sleeping because this is me talking about myself. This is about money. This is me. We are always very close to our heart. Money is very part of our being. God has given us. So thank you. We cannot thank you enough. So actually, we have something, but it doesn't arrive yet. We thought it's yesterday there, and then it's there. No, nothing. So very late, but just surprise next Sabbath. Okay? So we just hang out. Surprise. Yes. Come, please. We have here today. I will save me one. Because we will distribute this for this Friday, not this Saturday. This Friday we have this event coming up. Friday from 2 to 4, 2 hours. But 1 o'clock is the sitting. The group will arrive Thursday evening. I think they book a hotel, and then by Friday they will surround the area, check. And our church, of all the churches in Texas, we're the only church being top of these things. So, because they trusted us, especially the Pathfinder, because of our name, the Pathfinder. But I told them, Pathfinder cannot come up right this time because it's not, we have not officially started yet. And if the kids can go there they really look for the kids to join this presentation because they have prepared something for the children, connect to the children. This program, they're doing it in Houston, in different places in Texas. So the church really like connecting. What's the objective of this program? To connect the church to the community by making friends. So this banner on health lecture, about seminar, what makes me happy, about alcohol, drugs, and smoking. And in fact, they train also something here about how to overcome all these things that will hinder your family's relationship. So it's a family-oriented seminar. So the event, the place is already prepared. We went there, Ryan and I went there yesterday. So the manager said, yeah, you can distribute the flyers, what you want. And then by Friday, they will still be there. Specific. Yeah, the specific is the address here. Parkland Pointe Apartments. Are you familiar with this apartment? Parkland Pointe Apartment. It's in 907 Pinion Drive, Arlington. It's 2.3 miles from here. And then surrounding that apartment, there is a lot of apartments. There is low end, class N, high end. So there's a lot of things there. So we just, Ron, I advise you to the Pinion apartment. We already distributed around there yesterday. So the surrounding on front, because that's a big area. So on front of that, there is a plug artisan apartment. The artisan apartment is the artisan. That's the place that from there, artisan, there's another apartment there. You can, artisan, huh? Rush Creek on the other end, that's another one. But the Pinion, no, not Pinion. The reference point, you can park, I went to the artisan apartment, so you can park in our area here and distribute your part, the artisan. But I did not go there for door to door because we already finished the parkland. So the parkland is already covered, only the front side. The front, across the street.
So we'll go to this address first and locate the
Yeah, you go to this address, you can park there in this address, but on front of this, across the street, is the artisan apartment.
Okay, so we get
And you can park here in the artisan apartment. At the back of that, their office is the many places there. Artisan and Rush Creek, right? Rush Creek apartment. Blood pressure, you can bring blood pressure and yeah. Friday afternoon. So why, and also Ron, we can budget, because they prepared health